Yo, nation, surprise, I'm live. I was not planning on going live tonight, but I was downstairs shooting video, and I was like, you know what? I can go live. Why not? Doesn't have to be for very long, but we can chat whiskey. It'll be dank. That's exactly what we're going to do. Specifically, we're going to chat about blending whiskey. Video I just got done shooting was kind of a summary of what's the deal with Elijah Craig recently. Specifically, batch B521, which has been in the news, the whiskey news. People who are into whiskey have talked a lot about batch B521. Why is it unique? Because it's the lowest Elijah Craig barrel proof batch ever. And some people have not liked that. They haven't liked it very much at all. I liked it fine. I thought it was totally fine. Let me check my audio here because I just went live on a whim. Yeah. Okay, cool. I think we're good. All right. So yeah, lowest proof edition of Elijah Craig barrel proof ever. Now, spoiler alert, I liked it. I'm going to talk a lot about it in the video I released, so I'm going to spare you too much detail. What we will talk about tonight is blending, because I felt like, what if people didn't like it? What if they bought it and they were just genuinely like, no, it's not for me. I wish I hadn't bought it. I think it's kind of a waste. I thought, you know what? This is where whiskey blending really comes in as an outlet for you. Like, there are whiskeys that I have that I'm not huge on, but I keep them around. I'm like, you know what? This has a component that I would like, or that I could see liking if I paired it up with maybe some other flavors. So at some point, I'm going to do a much deeper dive into blending. But specifically today, I thought it would be fun to blend a little bit off of Elijah Craig batch B521. Now, ideally, we would have a scale for this, but my scale's upstairs, and I'm not going to go get it. So we're going to totally spot this. If I was a professional blender, I'd be weighing this to the gram. Some people might do it by milliliters. I think grams is probably more accurate, especially if you have if you can measure, I put 3.2 grams into this. So if you were to say it's 50% of something, to the point whatever gram it is, that would make you a very exact blender. That's probably a win. I have to put some of this extra whiskey away so we can pour out little samples here of batch B521. Now, when we're blending, it's important to know what it is we're dealing with taste-wise. Batch B521 is pretty oaky. What I said on my larger video, which is to be released yet, is that it's very dark flavor profile. Coffee, molasses, tobacco. Interesting stuff. And that can add a lot of depth to something that maybe we like, but it's just playing on the lighter end of the spectrum. Another component flavor-wise, batch B521, or something to keep in mind, is it's not terribly fruity. So I'm just seeing if these all look pretty similar. So we've got a very dark flavor profile, not terribly fruity. So if we want to add some fruit to the party on one of these samples, we're going to call it the fruity sample, which is right up my alley. That'll be the sample on the right. What do we have that's fruity? And I'm totally winging this tonight. I was like, you know what? I really just want to do whiskey stuff tonight. So here we go. Fruity whiskey. Well, Dickel 15. It brings a lot of oak to the party too, but this brings such a heavy candied orange note. Not Flintstone vitamin because it's not chalky, but heavy candied orange. I feel it could use some tobacco and coffee notes to help kind of make it not as orange juicy. So let's just go half and half. Let's add some orange to our deep dark notes from Elijah Craig. Go a little 50-50 on this blend. See what we're rocking. Scott says, I blend Elijah Craig Barrel Proof with Barton Full Proof for a poor man's BBC Discovery series. Not a bad idea. Yeah. Blend in the Barton and the Heaven Hill. That's it. I mean, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is generally so good. I'm not a big fan of blending it with anything, but for the tubes, I'm willing to do it. So this does bring a lot more balance to the nostril profile. To the nose. The sweetness is there from Dickel, this 15-year-old Dickel. Very sweet, very fruity. Get the depth of the oak from the Elijah Craig and the fact that that's 15-year-old Dickel. So it's not like it was really hurting on the oak side. The orange still comes through, but it's met with the tobacco. And what the Dickel also provides, the Elijah Craig, that B521 doesn't have, is viscosity. So we get a lot of fruit, a lot of oak, a lot of viscosity, some roasted nuts, and some black pepper on the finish. Really, really nice. I thought the Elijah Craig and the Dickel 15 were really nice, but you put them together and it creates a very, very different whiskey that is more reminiscent of what you'll see in some of the barrel blends. You do get Dickel notes in the barrel blends if you look for them. You get orange, you get light citrus. You also get this roasted nut, and you also get sometimes, probably from either Beam or Heaven Hill source stocks, this creaminess and sweet oak and brown sugar that often doesn't show up in Dickel. So you can create your own barrel blend if you wanted to by mixing these two products. To me, it's kind of a win. Bourbon Tech, what's up, Drew? Love the channel, man. Keep up the awesome content. Hey, thanks, dog. We're just winging it tonight, just keeping it fast and loose. So the 50-50 Elijah Craig Dickel 15 is a winner, in my opinion. Really well balanced. I already talked you through the notes. I'm not going to say anything else. Now, let's say we wanted to add some herbaceous spice to this dark coffee tobacco molasses Elijah Craig, which is good. And I honestly have no idea if this punchy herbaceous spice is really going to play well with it. So this is totally an experiment. But so let's say, what's an equivalent product? Old Ezra 7 to me, that's probably Heaven Hill juice. That's really nutty and herbaceous, but also has Heaven Hill intensity. It's barrel strength Heaven Hill, and a little bit of oak. Now we're already playing with a lot of oak, so we can probably add a lot of light effervescence and still get a really round flavor profile, and hopefully end up somewhere close to that Old Ezra 7 barrel strength kind of flavor vibes. To do that, I mean, we could either add a really high rye bourbon, which is younger high rye bourbon, or we could add, oh, that would be interesting. So we could add Booker's, which is going to give us nuttiness, or we could add a straight rye whiskey. And I'm a little bit tempted to do, I think we go Booker's, and then we add a rye as well. So I've got a little bit of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. If we're targeting the Old Ezra 7 barrel strength profile, the nuttiness from Booker's will be good for that. And then we can add, I think I've got the thing here. We can add a lighter whiskey to lighten up the proof a little bit, bring some more grainy notes. Which grainy I'm not a huge fan of normally, but hey, we're targeting a profile here. This is just an exercise, thought exercise. Weller Antique 107, that might be good. I have no idea what that would taste like. We can play that out in a minute. I have one more cup here. All right, I'm going to taste this before I add anything else, and then I'll talk about why I reached for this. So this is Elijah Craig plus Booker's. It's probably, 1 or 2 parts E. Craig and 1 part Booker's. We're right where we want to be. Yeah, we're super close. I wish I had a bottle of Old Ezra 7, but that funky nuttiness from Booker's carried right through, but it's not left to its unabashed glory because of the taming qualities, the dark notes of the Elijah Craig. That said, we're still really high proof. The Old Ezra barrel strength tends to run in the 120s. We're probably, well, we're 118 on that one, and then we're 126.5. So actually, we're probably right where we need to be proof-wise. This one's 115, so it's not going to proof us down too much, but the flavor profile on this is very light. This is very, very well-aged tasting because we got super old Elijah Craig. Booker's does not taste young by any stretch of the imagination. This is not young whiskey. It's 18-year-old whiskey, but it tastes crazy light. Very citrusy, very lemongrassy, and I think it's just going to take the big brashness of this current blend, bring it down for us a little bit. I don't like this whiskey on its own, really. It's kind of, just doesn't have a lot going on. A little malty, but I think it's going to serve as a good foil to these two flavors and just help us soften the edges. It's not bad. It's just kind of boring. And it's not as sweet as some malt whiskeys or scotches that I like. It's more peppery and grassy, which means Brian Bikey, Abandoned Bourbon, he'd probably like it. Big fan of the grass notes, that guy. Dov, what's up? Sick whiskey glasses. Is there a specific site you ordered those from? Also love the channel. Thanks, man. These, I did order them from a specific site, and I forgot the name of that site. I'm going to make them available for purchase, though. I just have to do it. I mean, honestly, I'd rather like make whiskey videos than figure out how to sell stuff. So that's why they're not available yet. Now let's taste this blend. So probably 1 part Booker's, 1 part barrel whiskey, not even American. Oh, no, it's Kentucky straight whiskey. So that we haven't got that going for it. So barrel Kentucky straight whiskey, 18-year-old. 1 part of that, 1 part Booker's, 2 parts Elijah Craig batch B521. If you're just joining us, why am I doing this? Well, I like Elijah Craig batch B521, but there have been enough people who didn't like it. This is a thought exercise on, well, what could you do with it? You can blend it. So that's what we're working on right now. Our goal with this blend was to create something that tasted like Old Ezra 7. Young and punchy. A little funky. You know, I might add just a little bit more of the beam. But I think I got it. It needs a little bit more funkiness. That's why I would go with the beam. That touch of the barrel sort of brought the old age flavor components down a little bit. Yeah, and just made it taste like Ezra Brooks. So the Old Ezra barrel strength 7. If you gave me that and told me that's what it was, I would believe you. If I did a side-by-side with Old Ezra barrel strength 7, I don't know if I could tell the difference. Anyway, that's number 2. Now number 3. I like this idea of pairing Elijah Craig with a wheater, particularly Elijah Craig barrel proof. Because it tends, like right now with this batch, we're working with very, very dark notes. Some sweetness could make it extraordinary. Spiciness, we'll take it into the Ezra Brooks territory, which we just learned. Fruitiness takes it into the barrel bourbon sort of batch. What other batch did I have? Dang it. I've had 2 batches. They both tasted pretty comparable. You know, it tastes kind of like MGP mixed with Dickel, which is not bad. It's very good. So this reminds me of a lot of barrel bourbon batches. The one we mixed with Dickel 15, Old Ezra 7. Now, what would it taste like if we went 4 grain? I don't know. Let's just do it. And then let's try and say, well, what does this remind us of? Hold, please. So we're going to go 1 part Weller 107 against 1 part Elijah Craig B521. This feels a little wasteful, but it's also really fun to do this. And just explore. Ah, crap. I probably put way too much 107 in there. This is going to be the start of an infinity bottle, I think. This is going to be poor man's William LaRue Weller. Like taking 107 and adding some big oakiness to it. Yeah, it's just really rich, really sweet. Brown sugar all over 4 days. Toasted marshmallow, like dark chocolate, kind of like chocolate pie. Hit it again. Get some water here. Cleanse this palate. Yeah, I get like an almond butter. I mean, it tastes like just more like a well-aged wheater because there's not much spiciness in B521. I got black pepper, tobacco, but nothing that was funky, you know, nothing that was rye forward. By spicy, I mean like rye spice. So we're not talking about dill, parsley, those are out. Caraway, that's out. None of that. More just, if anything, cinnamon, black pepper. So taking the depth of the coffee and the tobacco and adding it with Weller 107, which is like pure brown sugar, it's just really nice. Desserty style whiskey, and probably elevates the Weller and just changes the Craig. I don't know if this is better than the Elijah Craig on its own. It may be. It's pretty good. That's really good. I cannot drink all this tonight, so I will probably save this one. I might finish this one tonight. The Dickel 15 blend. That one, I'm just not a big fan of the Old Ezra Barrel Strength 7. It's fine. I think we nailed the profile with this blend. If you like Old Ezra 7, that blend might suit you well. It doesn't really crush it for me, though. All right. Yeah, Fred, it's new. What's up, man? I'm just hanging out really tonight, doing some blending. Not planning on doing this often, but I had some time and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's get some whiskeys out and pair them with Elijah Craig batch B521 here. See what we can come up with. So just to recap, let's pick. I'm going to taste through these one more time and try and pick which one was best. And it's fun to do these blends in small glasses because, God forbid, if I did hate the B521, I could take the rest of the bottle contents and basically create 2.5 bottles of something that I really, really liked if I was blending it with other components that I, liked better as a blend versus on their own. So given these options, then I could say, all right, I've got these 3 options. What blend do I want to make into a multi-bottle solution? Well, let's decide. Oh, thanks for that super chat. That's really generous. You're welcome. I mean, I didn't hate it. So my pleasure. The Dickel 15 Elijah Craig batch B521 50-50 mashup is really good. I think if you sent that to Fred Minnick, he'd say it had marzipan in it. He would like the really rich. I mean, it kind of goes beyond orange almost because I don't get like a citric acid mouthfeel. That said, it's still really fruity, but it's more like a Honeycrisp apple. So maybe that orange shifts a little bit into apple. Then you get almond candy, which that's what marzipan is. It's a creamy almond candy. Sweet oak for days. Vanilla custard, like Culver's cold vanilla custard. It's really nice. The 50-50, Elijah Craig 12 against Dickel 15. Really solid stuff. Second blend we created was 1 part barrel whiskey 18-year, 1 part Booker's 2020-02, and then 2 parts Elijah Craig. The goal was to make this taste like Old Ezra 7. The nose is still darker than Old Ezra 7. The punch on Old Ezra Barrel Strength 7 of rye and peanuts is very strong. It very well could be Beam. And now that it's sat here a while, it still tastes older than Old Ezra Barrel Strength 7. That said, it's definitely in that profile range, if that's what you dig. Adding a little Booker's, and then bring in some grassy, more earthy notes in with that barrel whiskey. Kind of gets you in the Ezra Brooks family for sure. Not my favorite, but mission accomplished from a blending perspective. Finally, I was shooting for 1 part Weller, 1 part Elijah, but I probably put a little too much Weller in there. And it tastes like a well-oaked wheated. Could I stack it up against a William LaRue Weller? My palate's probably a little tired for that because I'm just sipped barrel strength whiskeys now for the last 45 minutes. But who knows? I'm going to save that. I'm going to put it in a sample jar and we'll see. I don't have a William LaRue Weller. Some point maybe. It would make an interesting blind to pop that next to it. So favorites are going to come down to these two. Sip them one more time. Hit some questions before I do that. Steve Burkow, could a Maker's Mark product substitute for the Weller 107 allocated around here? If so, which Maker's Mark product? Yeah, substitute. Yeah, really solid substitutes actually. Either go with the standard Maker's cask strength release, or if you're able to pick up one of the Maker's special releases, like just the other day in Milwaukee, I picked up the 2020 version of the Maker's 46 cask strength release, which was, $55. So really reasonable cost-wise substitute for Weller 107. And I think you'll find it maybe better in a 1-to-1 taste-off. So I did Weller 107 against the Maker's special releases for 2020 and 2021. The FAE 01 for 2021 and the SC4 PR5. I have them up there. You can just see a little bit of them. And I found the 2021 Maker's was the best. Then Weller 107. Then the 2020 Maker's. They were all wonderful. I loved them all. But yeah, I think Maker's is great. I think they're totally underhyped. I think they get a lot of hate for being big, but I think they're phenomenal. I think it's great whiskey. Maker's 46 standard, Maker's 46. I enjoy it. And standard Maker's in a pinch, because every bar has Maker's. Have it. Just try it. If you haven't tried it in a while, try it. You will not be sorry. Steve says, you have them all. Well, then you're set, dog. You're good to go. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. If you have all those things, I wouldn't worry about not having the Weller 107. You'll be fine. You're not missing out. It's good, but you're not missing out. You still have a great wheated bourbon. Dov says he continues to be impressed on how available Maker's is without the price ever really increasing. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? Like, props to them, right? Fun fact, Maker's is owned by Beam Suntory, and Beam doesn't really increase their prices either, with the exception of Booker's. And then the Baker's rebrand, but still nobody buys Baker's. I don't know if it worked. Fred says, had the 46 cask just last night. Awesome. Got to get another bottle. Sweet. So regular maker is not a favorite of mine. I like the rest of them though. I don't know that it's a favorite of mine either, but I think I would take regular makers against Weller Special Reserve every day. That's probably an unpopular opinion, but I think if you were to give them to people blind, which you should, like if you're ever like, do I really like this? Just blind taste it against something and see which one you like better. Try to leave ego out of it. Try and leave costs. Try and leave hype out of it. I think that's one of the reasons that B521 got knocked so hard is that people get hyped on high proof Elijah Craig releases. This one's not that high proof. And so there's already a bias against it. But if you were to blind it, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Jake Miller, Kenzie versus Glenn for neat pours. 6 1, half dozen of the other. Really, I actually prefer to drink out of, and if you're a fan of the channel, you know that I love a fat bottom glass. This just feels better. Feels like this is the way that bourbon was meant to be drunk. Whether it's a Glen or a Kinsey, it delivers the liquid to your tongue on such a focused point that the intensity almost gets jacked up. Bourbon's intense enough as it is. Like Elmer T. Lee was a big proponent of proofing the bourbon way down to truly assess it. Like proof it down to like 30% ABV, 60 proof, which we're all like, that's terrible. Why would you do that? I wouldn't proof it down that much. That said, I don't need a big wallop of 130 proof whiskey right in the middle of my tongue. It's hard to taste. That said, the aromatic properties of the Kinsey or the Glen, helpful. If I had to pick which one, I think the Glen, it depends on the day. The Glen looks more sophisticated. The Kinsey feels more like an every person glass. So I like them both depending on the day. Kid Audio says Baker 7 is totally underrated. Out of the 2 bottles I've tasted of Baker 7, that's not I'm not a fan of Baker's. Of all the knob, Jim Beam is a mixed bag. I prefer Booker's and Knob Creek. With Knob Creek, I prefer the most out of the Booker's Jim Beam lineup. Prefer Knob Creek the most. Baker's I would take before Basil Hayden. And I would take it before a lot of the standard Beam lineup, but I would take it after Booker's and Knob. Now the price is north of $50 for a 7-year bourbon. Like, is it underrated at that price? I don't know. My opinion would say no. I don't think Baker's is underrated. I think it's probably correctly rated. I think Knob is still underrated. Knob Creek. All right, I got to pick one of these. Then we're going to sign it off. Appreciate you guys jumping on. Well, if you have any questions, we can stay on a little bit longer. But again, this was a spur of the moment little blending session. I might do more of these depending on the particular kind of day I've had. But just a preview, what I got coming out is what's the deal with Elijah Craig Barrel Proof lately? And that'll probably go up some point this weekend, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. And then I'll have my normal video on Monday. We'll have live stream this Thursday per usual. We've got to hit some more craft whiskeys. I'm at like 64 or something. And I have enough to get me to 70 unique craft whiskeys I've tasted in 2021. Well on my way to 100. That was the goal this year. So probably just do that this week. And then the following week, we'll have Joe Henry from J. Henry on for the Thursday night pod recording / live stream. If you haven't watched the last 2 live streams we did, one of them with Ryan Cecil from Bourbon Pursuit, that was last week. 2 weeks ago, we had Sam Montgomery from Bardstown Bourbon Company. Those were awesome conversations. You should go back and watch those like right after we finish this. All right. So choosing the blend. Either the Dickel 15 Elijah Craig 1-1 or the Weller 107 Elijah Craig 1-1. Man, that's just so rich and sweet and good. Not very complex, but just pure deliciousness. Jake says, Knob 120 better stay underrated. Yeah, it seems impossible, but I think they produce enough of that. Like they just added the age statement back. It doesn't look like Knob is going anywhere. These are both phenomenal blends. The flavors play really well together. This Elijah Craig in its dark, oaky, tobacco-y, molassesy flavor profile is easy to bounce off of. I'd probably stay away from adding really spicy whiskeys to it, but a really sweet wheater or a really fruity Tennessee bourbon does play super well with it. It's a matter of preference, I think. I'm going to go with the Weller, but both are great. And I think I'm going to put some saran wrap over them, or like I said, sample jar, both of these guys, because I will enjoy those pours. Maybe I'll just finish this tonight, get it out of the way. But that was fun. We'll do that again at some point. There's a lot of open whiskey behind me, so a lot of stuff to play with. Maybe one day, you know what? Maybe Thursday we'll do a larger live stream where we taste some craft whiskeys, and then we just spend the rest of the night blending a bunch of stuff together, and then creating an infinity bottle. That would also be really interesting. Lots of directions we could take this, but for now, I'm going to sign it off after I read these comments. You guys keep me on here a little longer. Sick of it all says Blanton straight from the barrel for $250, worth it. I've passed on it at $250. Local secondary is in that $250 range. It's just like, is it going to be better than Stag Junior, which the secondary on that's $150? Probably not $100 better. So it's pretty rare. That's kind of cool to have, but I'm past at $250. That's my call. Kenneth says, just saw your Heaven Hill episode. Good stuff. You hear about the new visitor center with this Five Brothers bourbon. Any thoughts? I can't wait to check it out. Next time I'm down there, I plan to go and check and taste. Sounds super cool. The pictures I've seen look awesome. So I'm a buy on the experience, but I haven't heard too much about it from people who've been there, people who have, tried the Five Brothers shenanigans. But it seems like a really cool experience from everything I've read from the press-oriented stuff. Chris Heron, pretty new to the whole community and just polished off a bottle of Rebel Distillers Collection. That's a barrel pick, I assume. It was my first foray into buying my own whiskey. What should I try next? All right. Wow. Well, dude, you cannot go wrong with just your standard Elijah Craig 94 proof. Generally not offensive, really, really yummy bourbon. This is going to be different from the Rebel Yell that you had because the Rebel is a wheated bourbon made with wheat. Well, corn first, then wheat and barley. Most bourbon is made with corn first, then rye, then barley. And Elijah Craig would be one of those as well. They use what's called a low rye mash bill, less than 20% rye in the mash bill, where, some whiskeys like... why am I blanking? Anyway, some other whiskeys will use more than 20% rye in the mash bill. It's called high rye. So I would point you in the direction of standard Elijah Craig small batch, which is one of my favorite everyday whiskeys, or hold please. Oh, yes. Jeepers. If you can get a Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit single barrel, you'd probably really like that. If you're looking for something similar to what you had, get Maker's Mark or Maker's 46. We were just talking about that. Maker's 46 you might find you really like compared to that Rebel Yell. There's so many directions you can go. I still haven't done like an introduction to bourbon video. I need to do that and just lay out my picks. Oh, another great one, lower proof, would be Evan Williams single barrel. It's an 8-year-old product, comes with black wax, really lovely, and really nice, non-offensive, delicious bourbon. Okay, move on from that. This has been awesome. Thanks. Hey, no problem. Glad you could just stop in and hang out for a little bit. Colby, are you still doing the small craft series? Yep, I said I got to taste some more on Thursday. I'm up to like 65. It's been a while since I tasted some on one of the live streams, but I'm committed to 100 in 2021. So after Thursday, I should be up to 70, which is pretty cool. So 30 more. Just chipping away at it. Chris said just started watching YouTube channels the last few days. It's a mixed bag, my dude. But just find a channel that sort of gives you what you're looking for, floats your boat. There's a whole spectrum of content from very educational to more fun shenanigans, some less fun shenanigans. But again, whatever you're into, I'm sure you can find something. Sick of It All is going to pass on that $250 straight from the barrel Blanton's. Sick of It All, Eagle Rare. Yeah, if you can find Eagle Rare, that's delightful. I really like Eagle Rare. Don't pay more than $40 though. Makers 101, that's the limited release they did this year. They used to have that available at the distillery only. In 2020, they released Makers 101, sort of in a limited capacity. All right, squad. It was fun. I'm going to hang it up now. If you have any more questions, DM me on Instagram at Drippy Whiskey. If you're on the stream, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you catch the official streams, ones beyond this, on Thursday nights, and then my new video drops on Mondays. Look this weekend, though, for the special extra video release talking about what's the deal with Elijah Craig Barrel Proof recently. All right, stay healthy, stay safe, y'all. Remember to keep it neat.